Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I am your host, Mark Roberti, CEO and founder of the Content Marketing Plaza, bringing you 3 new episodes each week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. And one of the best things that has worked for me is writing books. I've written over 20 of them, some of them becoming bestsellers. And I think if you have a bestseller, it just opens so many more possibilities. So that's why we're going to talk about how we can get our very own #1 best-selling book and use that to become a high-paid authority in your niche, be able to attract clients and new opportunities your way, all with a best-selling book. So the guest who joins us today, she helps people become best-selling authors. She's gotten people on lists like the Wall Street Journal and plenty of others. And she helps women reach 6-figure incomes by following their dreams. She left a 17-year career in the legal field to follow her dreams of writing, teaching, and public speaking. She is the author of books such as Backwards Book Launch and Quit Your Job and Follow Your Dreams. Today's guest for episode 345 of the Breakthrough Success podcast is none other than Michelle Kulp. Michelle, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you, Mark. That was a really nice introduction. Thanks.
Michelle, I'm so happy to have you on the show. Just as background, I've already had Michelle on the Wealthy Author Summit, which is evergreen, by the way. So she was amazing there. I know she'll be amazing here. So I'm wondering, before we dive into hitting that #1 bestsellers list and using your book to really expand your brand, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what does having a book, especially a bestseller, really do? Because it's a lot of work to, write a book and do all that. So what's the reward in it for us if we hit that bestseller list?
Well, that's a good question, Mark. It is a lot of work, and I have clients say, Michelle, you didn't tell me this is going to be like giving birth to a baby. I guess women say that. Maybe men don't say that as much, but it is, because it's one thing to be really good at what you do and the expert, but to take that information in your brain and get it out onto paper into a book is not an easy process. It would really be the same as creating a webinar or creating an online course or really creating anything, right? You've got to put it in some kind of semblance so people understand it, and you got to, figure out what the steps are, whatever you're teaching. But once you do the hard work, my program is about 12 weeks. I work with a lot of clients who come to me. They don't have a book. They don't have a title. They don't have a subtitle. They don't have anything written, and they want a book. I also work with people who already sort of have stuff written, or people that already have books. But when people come to me with no title, no subtitle, we've got to find the hook for the book, as you know, and figure out, what is their unique spin on it. My father always says, Michelle, there's nothing new under the sun, but if you put your spin on it, then that's what makes it unique. And Seth Godin, one of my favorite authors in The Purple Cow, says, in a world full of brown cows, you got to be the purple cow. And so, yeah, there's so many books on everything. And now with Amazon, I do love Amazon because what they've done is, first of all, they've leveled the playing field, meaning anybody can self-publish a book. And that is a double-edged sword. It means there's good stuff and there's a lot of junk, you know what I mean? Because anybody can publish a book. So you've really got to focus on publishing a quality book. Figure out who your audience, what your unique, angle or hook is on the topic, and then, spend the work to get the information out. And then once you do that, being a bestseller basically sort of just gives you a title and some credibility. It doesn't mean you're a wealth, you're rich and you can just, retire now. You're a best-selling author. All it means is you have a tool now, like my book you mentioned, Backwards Book Launch. Now you have a tool and you can use this. And the way I use my Backwards Book Launch is I sell it on Amazon, obviously, but I also give it away to clients when I'm talking to people for strategy sessions that are interested in working with me. I actually send over a PDF copy of the book. And many times they read the book before, we get on our call. And many times they end up hiring me for my Done For You program, which is, thousands of dollars. So a book can be worth 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, depending on what you're selling on the back end. And that's kind of what's inside this book is 12 profit paths for your book. And you can basically connect your book to these other profit paths. Grant Cardone did that with several of his books. He just created courses that were just chapter by chapter in his book. So I don't know, you know who Perry Marshall is, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, Perry Marshall wrote a lot of books on Facebook advertising and the 80-20 marketing rule. And years ago, I read one of his, and this is many years ago, his Facebook marketing books. And I went to his website and I didn't see anything else. Like he didn't have a course that went along with it because I really was like, okay, I get it. Like in my brain, I read the book, but now I need help to implement the Facebook ads strategies and things and the Google pay-per-click ads. And I went to his website years ago and he didn't have anything to help me. Now he has Facebook University. So if you read his books, you go to his website, you can go sign up for this membership. I think it's like $59 a month. And you can, go deeper with Perry Marshall on his material. And that's what the author can do is you can literally take one book and create 12 different things with it. You can create a mastermind program, an online course with it. You can do retreats. I just got back from an amazing retreat up in Massachusetts. You can, use your book to get new clients and new people on your email list. So there's a lot of rewards, as I'm sure you know, since you're the author of 20 books. I'm the author of about 8 books right now, but I have helped over 125 clients with their books become best-selling authors.
And one important thing Michelle brings up is that when you're a best-selling author, that doesn't mean you're retired. That doesn't mean you're making all this passive income. There are some people who they're best-selling authors and they're wondering, like, I got to make more money. So being a best-selling author, it puts your book in front of more people. But if you do what Michelle said, and this is something we talk about in my book, The Wealthy Author, if you take the content within your book and you're promoting things like products and you're turning your book into products, that's where you could literally turn a book into an entire brand. So definitely don't just view the book for its royalties. And when it comes to best selling, that does not mean best written book. Obviously, you want to have a good written book. We talked about in some of the other episodes. This one will just focus more on being that bestseller. But when you are planning to turn a book into a bestseller, because you mentioned you've helped over 125 clients, what goes into that plan? Like, what are some of the things that seem to go into any kind of plan for bestseller, regardless of what book you're promoting?
Well, like you said, we want to have a quality book, right? So we do spend a lot of time on, figuring out what sometimes we just have a working title when we're starting the book. And we sort of just do an interview process trying to figure out, what is it that, like you're trying to get your client from one side of the river to the other side of the river, right? And so we just kind of break down the steps that you're taking them through to get to the other side of the river. So on Backwards Book Launch, we can use that for an example. I had a lot of different ideas for titles. I actually did a survey on it with 12 other titles. And this was one of the ones that won. And I think this title won because nobody knew what a backwards book launch is because I made it up. I mean, I used to say it to like clients all the time. I would joke around. And that's why it became a book, was when I was teaching clients, they would go, well, how am I going to make money from the book? But it was like they would get the book out and then they would say, how do I make money? And I said to them, why don't we think about the profit path first before we write the book? You know what I mean? That's where Backwards Book Launch came in. Is like many people get a book, they're like, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to have a book. And then when it's done, they're like, all right, now what do I do? And it's like, well, why don't we think about that first? And why don't we plan what you're going to build around your book first? So we sort of come up with our unique angle and hook, which, like I said, with Backward Book Launch, you can come up with, you can kind of do like a mind map and just come up with a whole bunch of different titles. And then you could do surveys on it. One of my clients' books, we did Google pay-per-click ads, and we had our final 2, and we put them out there, and one got like 5 times more clicks than the other one, and we ended up using that one for the title. So sometimes you think a title's great, and then you test it, and you're like, all right, people don't like my title as much as I like it, So it's good to put in front of your target audience and see what other people like, and and just get it out there that way. So I would say the process is getting clarity. You can't put everything in one book. Nobody wants the manifesto anymore. They don't want to read a 400-page book. They don't even want to really read probably a 200-page book. If you can write shorter books, and I know, Mark, your Wealthy Author book was great. I feel like I read that one evening, and I love books like that I can consume quickly, that I learn a lot from, and that I can take action on. So even if, like, let's say you're a branding expert or a marketing expert, don't try to put everything in the last 20 years of business into this one book. Pick one thing and then just try to talk about that. So like Backwards Book Launch, all I talked about is the profit path. I didn't talk about, how to get to the bestsellers list or writing a book or, any of that stuff. I just focused on one angle. So that's pretty much what I would go through, with people, is helping them through that process.
And just something very important, because I know you mentioned my book, The Wealthy Author. That book is maybe a little under 100 pages. I have written some books like Content Marketing Secrets. That one is, I want to say 280 pages just off the top of my head. One of the advantages of having a shorter book that not many people think about is, your book is your business card, in the sense where you walk with it, you could hand it out to people. But if you want to buy 500 copies of your book, it's much cheaper to buy a 100-page book than it is a 280-page book. So you definitely make it easier for yourself to get more copies of your own book if it is a little shorter. Just something I thought I'd throw in there. But I like the idea of that profitability path, because there are some ways to leverage a book once you have it out, but the plan for profitability shouldn't start with, I publish a book, let's make this thing profitable. It definitely starts before that. So one of the things you help people with is not just making money with a book, but attracting clients through our books. So I'm wondering, how does that work for you to get clients from your book?
Well, I don't know if I've told this story before on your other show, but I'll tell it again, because I after I left the legal field of 17 years, I became an outside sales rep. So I went from law to selling hot tubs, which seems like a crazy jump, but I did. And the hot tub company I worked for the guy was actually a genius. He took the company from $5 million to $60 million. And let me tell you what he did. What he did was he looked at all the hot tub companies out there, and they all had storefronts, brick and mortar buildings. And he said, we have to sit here and wait for people to come to us, and it's really hard to get people in our stores. And one night he was up in the middle of the night, and he was watching infomercials, and he was like, infomercials are genius. And people you could sell millions of dollars of a product on an infomercial. And so he shut down all the storefronts of this hot tub company, and he started doing infomercials, and he hired the best in-home sales team. And I was one of the 80 guys. He hired, it was 78 guys and 2 women. So I was on the outside sales team, shut down all the storefronts. And what he did was he ran infomercials, and he sent out a DVD package. And he would just say, hey, do you need to relax more, spend time with your family, after a long day's work, you want to come home and relax in your own hot tub? Call this 800 number, get your free DVD package. We'll mail it to you, no obligation. Well, thousands of people would call when they ran these infomercials, and they would get the DVD package. They would watch it, and then their telemarketing department would follow up with a call and say, hey, we'd like to send somebody out to see where you want to put the hot tub, no obligation, site survey. And they'd send us out, which we were sales, but and we would go out there. But what I noticed is, and that's why I'm bringing this up because it's a good analogy, is that people that watched the DVD package before I got to the appointment, I always made the sale, like 95% of the time. You know why? Because they were a warm lead. They weren't a cold lead anymore, because they've had not only contact with the company, but they watched this very in-depth DVD about hot tubs, the benefits of hot tubs, the rewards, and really they were being warmed up to the company and our product. So when I showed up, they already they had a lot of the information. So I feel like 50% of the sale was made, and that is what a book can do for your business, whether you're a consultant, a speaker, a teacher, a trainer, any of those things. If somebody reads your book, that cold lead becomes a warm lead. They feel like they know you, especially if you're sharing, some stories and personal things. And it's really a great way to warm people up. And then obviously, you have something to sell them on the back end.
And I really like that element of books because there are a lot of people who they just think of books as the royalties. They think $2.99 Kindle book, make $2 from it. You sell, let's say, 50,000 of those every year. That's how you hit your 100,000. But
I don't know a lot of people doing that, Mark. Do you?
Not that many.
And if you want to do that, just by the way, because I want people to know this, then you need to work 8 hours a day working on marketing your book.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the difference. You need to spend a lot of money and a lot of marketing dollars behind that one book and focus all your energy on that book. And we both know Mark Recklaw. He's published quite a few business books, and Mark spends a lot of time just marketing his books. That's all he does. And he is making enough to support himself on the income from the royalties. But I want people to know, like, if that's your path and that's the way you want to go, plan on spending a lot of marketing dollars and a lot of time on that one or few books that you have, to the exclusion of everything else. Or you could take that book and use it to sell higher priced, things, programs.
Yeah, and if you do that higher price, that second option where you have a coaching service or you have a training course, it definitely gives you more money to earn per book. So instead of earning maybe $2 per book, you earn, let's say, on average $50 per book because you sell something high end within your book. So definitely something to incorporate when you do have that profitability path. So so don't think just about the royalties because that's certainly not going to be enough. So just wanted to clear that up for everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad we had the conversation about that. And two good examples that people might know are Jeff Walker and his book Product Launch. And that's a good lead-in because he has a course that he runs. I don't know if it's a couple times a year, and I really don't know the price point on it because I haven't taken it, but I would say it's probably several $1,000s on that course. And then not Brendan Burchard, but he's another one, but Russell Brunson, he doesn't sell, he sells software, that you use, right, Mark? You use the
ClickFunnels, yeah.
Yeah, ClickFunnels. I couldn't think of the name of it, but he writes the books, and he gives great information in his books. I have a couple of them here, and then that leads to people going, "Yeah, this makes sense," and then they become customers of his. So his is a great example of how to do that well.
Yeah, and there are so many different ways you could do that. I know Russell, he loves the free plus shipping model, where he'll pay to get you to book. You just have to cover the shipping. That's how he does it. You can also do that first page opt-in to grow your email list. There are definitely a lot of different ways to make money with your book and present those offers. But obviously not everyone is a best-selling author because, if it was easy, then we wouldn't be doing this episode. Like, everyone would just be doing it on their own. So what do you believe holds most people back from being #1 best-selling authors?
Well, I think that, like you said, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And most people publish their books the wrong way. There's a couple glitches, as you know, in Amazon systems when you're publishing a book, and they don't really tell you any of this stuff. And if you find it out, you're lucky. If not, just like if you wanted to be on page 1 of Google, right? You had a business and you want to be on page 1 for that keyword. If you're like an Italian restaurant in Annapolis, Maryland, you want to be on page 1. Well, then you need to figure out SEO, search engine optimization, keywords, how to be on page 1. Well, if you think about the analogy I love to give with Amazon is they probably have, 10 million books on their ebooks and print books. If you walked in Barnes and Nobles, right, the book in the bottom of the bookshelf in the furthest corner of the bookstore, when authors publish a book, that's where their book is. It's on the furthest corner on the bottom shelf upside down, and nobody can find it. And people that work with me, and you know how to do this as well, because you have a book that's hit the Wall Street Journal and USA Today, Write and Grow Rich. And I recently did that with a client of mine as well. You know very well that if you get visibility on Amazon, and that's from keywords and categories and book launches and massive promotion, and you understand how these bestseller lists work, then you're like way ahead of 98% of the authors who will never be on a bestsellers list. And they could have the greatest book. That's the sad part, Mark, is they could have the greatest book in the world. If they don't know how to publish it right on Amazon and do all these things, then nobody's ever going to see it. But when you become a best-selling author, then you're like in front of Barnes and Nobles. When you walk in the front door and they have that display right there, that's where your book is. It's on a bestsellers list, which are the most searched list on Amazon.
Yeah, and that's going back to what I mentioned earlier. The best-selling book's not necessarily the best-written book. Now, when you do open a bestseller, you see, wow, this is a high-quality book, like 99% of the case. But you do have to have the marketing behind your book so people actually read it, because you do mention that heartbreaking scenario where it's such a great book, but no one's really reading it just because it's not being promoted correctly. So I know it's not like you snap your fingers and bam, you're on the list. And certainly
a lot of work that goes behind it. That's why my program's like 12 weeks. It's not like, boom, you're a bestseller.
Right.
Just do this one thing and it works. No. Because also you want to stay a bestseller. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about today is like, okay, if you can get your book on the bestsellers list, that's great, but you don't want to just like get on it and then fall off of it. I have some clients that I worked, one of my first clients from 2013, Nancy Hartwell. She wrote a fiction book called Harem Slave. She was a retired Washington Post technical writer, and this is a book on human sex slave trafficking, but it's written as fiction. And she's done over 500 radio interviews, Mark, and she says that the radio interviews always drive the sales of the book. And she has stayed in the top 10 of the bestsellers list for 6 straight years.
That's amazing.
Top 10. And she even made enough to, she said she called it mortgage money. She actually was making enough to pay her mortgage with the book royalties and things. She does other things on the side as well, but she was a good example. So there's a lot of benefits to being on the bestsellers list, and a lot. Mark, you mentioned this in the very beginning about opportunities. I have clients that have done TED Talks now that, they're getting paid higher speaking engagements. They're getting more clients, more consulting fees. Perry Marshall said when he published his first print book, he said not an ebook, but print book, he said he increased his consulting fees 500%.
Wow.
And also the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. I don't know if you remember the story in it where he says that their real estate company wasn't being seen as, the leaders in the industry. And he got his team together and he said, all right, guys, I want us to come up with 100 things we can do, marketing, to be seen, to elevate our company. And so they came up with 100 things, and they had another meeting and they said, we're narrowing it down to 10 things. They narrowed it down to 10 things. Then they had one more meeting, and he said they decided that Gary writing a book would be the #1 thing they could do to elevate the business, and so people would know who they were for Keller Real Estate. And so he wrote a book called Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and that book actually went on to sell millions of copies, which is crazy, but it also brought them up into the world of like the big real estate companies, because before people just didn't know who they were. So writing a book can really change your business.
Wow, that's amazing. I know The One Thing, but I forgot that story of how how he started to write books. So that is certainly like if you have that level of focus, it's really incredible. One thing that I do want to go back on is you mentioned you have a 12-week program for helping people be a best-selling author. Do you prepare more than 12 weeks for a book usually, or is it 12 weeks you see is good enough time to go from, let's say for this case, like finished draft to bestseller?
Yeah, 12 weeks is plenty of time.
All right, that's
because you know why? Because if I made it longer, then they would take long. The clients would take longer to do it. So I decided after a lot of testing that 12 weeks was good enough for us to get that book done and get it out there. Now, if a client comes to me and we're going to use a ghostwriter, because I do have some ghostwriters that I work with. Let's say the ghostwriter is busy. The ghostwriter might take an extra month, so it might take us 4 months to get the book done as opposed to 3 months. But typically, if they have some stuff written, maybe it's not published, but they have a draft, and they come to me in 12 weeks, they're going to have a best-selling book.
Yeah, that is interesting. I just wanted to clarify that. Now, of course, you do have to have like a draft, whether it's final or because you don't want to. Some people are able to write the book and market it at the same time, but especially if this is your first go around, you may want to have a lot more of the book done just so you can go deeper and give marketing your full attention.
Yeah, I always hear from writers, we just want to write books. We don't want to do sales and marketing. Hey, you can keep dreaming in, fantasy world. I would like to be there too, just sit home. I'm actually very much an introvert. I'd like to sit home and just write books, but sales and marketing, if you don't get on the sales train, you'll get run over by it. So you've got to market your book, or if you're wealthy enough to pay people to do it, that's fine. But you know what Mark Reclaw told me once, I had a client who wanted to find somebody to do their Amazon ads for him. And Mark said, I've tried a lot of companies with Amazon ads. He said, nobody can do it like you can, because you care about your book, like more than anybody else is going to care about it. And a lot of companies just want to make a quick buck. So it's really hard, because a lot of authors don't want to learn it. But if you're really passionate about your book and you've got an important message, you want to get it out there, you've got to learn sales and marketing for your book.
Yeah, it's a really great insight, because there are a lot of writers who they just want to write. I mean, writing's fun. Marketing is just that necessary thing to get more readers, but it is something that you have to do. And that's a really big habit for people to have, be able to focus not just on the writing, but also on the marketing. So I'm wondering, Michelle, if you could share with us some of the habits you've developed that you would say are pretty important for your success.
It's funny you asked me, because I'm working on something for my clients. Like, okay, you're a best-selling author now. You've got your book. Now, what do you do? And if I had to pick 3 things, and I don't have anything written down, I'm just off the top of my head. But if I had to pick 3 things to focus on, I do focus a lot on Amazon ads. I would focus on Amazon ads, because to me, they are like search engine optimization for Google, right? They're the keywords that people type in the search engine on Amazon to find books about your topic. And you can use other best-selling authors, other best-selling books. You can use keywords related to your niche and your topic. But you just want to show up there. And the thing I love about Amazon ads, and you know this, Mark, is they give you free impressions. I mean, so you get all the, on Facebook ads, you don't get free impressions. You're paying for impressions. So with Amazon ads, and what impressions are, people don't know, is it just means when somebody types in a keyword and your book shows up under sponsored ads, they're seeing your cover over and over. They may not click on it, but they're kind of, it's like driving on the highway and seeing a billboard, and they're when they're ready to buy the book, then they'll remember, because they're seeing your cover over and over on these keyword results. So focus your time on your Amazon ads, which many of my clients don't want to spend the time and learn it. It's not that hard, I don't think, but you got to spend a couple hours a day on your Amazon ads. The other thing would be being on podcast shows like this. Because my client, who did over 500 radio interviews, and she's in her 70s, and if she can do it, then anybody can do it. And that was only in a 3-year period, those 500 radio interviews. And I remember this one interview she did, and actually the guy was in New York. He was on Blog Talk Radio. She did the interview. The next day she had 700 sales of her book on Amazon, 700. So think about that. I'm not saying every show you do, you're going to get 700 sales the next day. But a lot of shows that have a great subscriber list and listeners, you can get a lot of sales for your book. So I would focus, that would be my second thing, would be Amazon ads, then podcast and radio. And people always say the same thing. Well, I don't know how to get, you can either do it manually and figure it out, or you can pay people to do it. I mean, so there's 2 paths to do it. And what would be the third thing I would focus on? I don't know. I guess it's a toss-up, but for me, what I've done is I did a speaking engagement last year in front of 300 women in Florida. I'm still getting clients from that event. I have picked up 4 or 5 clients just from that speaking engagement for my Done For You program. Wow. And they've been great clients, really quality, high-level women. So if you can get out, I mean, I know especially introverts, and I'm an introvert too. I just like to stay home too, but I make myself. Actually, I had to get over my fear of public speaking. I had to join Toastmasters for many years, and then I did something called speaking circles. So I became president of Toastmasters, and believe me, I hated public speaking. I did it because I knew I would never be a successful author unless I got over my fear of public speaking. So years ago, I joined Toastmasters. I still hated it for many years, and then I became president of the club. Then I became area governor, still hated it. Then somebody introduced me to speaking circles, which was about speaking from your heart. And once I learned to just speak from my heart and not rehearse everything and really try to connect with the audience on the heart level, then I wasn't afraid anymore. And I thought, most people are here to support me. They're not here to criticize me or judge me or all this stuff going on in our heads about, what people are thinking of us. And once I learned to speak from my heart, now I can get up in front of a room full of hundreds or thousands of people. It doesn't bother me anymore, where before I would like terror, like getting in front of people. So I know writers are probably mostly introverts. That's why I'm saying this. If you can get over your fear of public speaking, hey, if you need help, go to Toastmasters or speaking circles. Get over that fear and go out and talk about your book. You will get a lot of clients from that, and you will sell a lot more books that way as well.
Yeah, public speaking is probably one of the best ways to grow your business, and you get a lot of really nice shots of you, which definitely, like, when you get those pictures, like, you don't understand until you get the pictures, and then it's like you use that for your ads, you use that for your book, like author cover. There's so many things you could do with that stuff. So there's a lot of benefits to public speaking. So Toastmasters, that's a great resource, which will be in the show notes, markberry.com/E345. One of the questions that I do have for you, though, is that I have asked you a bunch of questions, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
You mean for authors or?
I would say let's do authors for this one.
Yeah, I would say when you said earlier how it's hard to focus on the writing and then the marketing. Think about, your personality and your personality. Yeah, I just want to write the books, but it's like writing your book and putting it in a safe in your home and then locking the key, right? Nobody can find your book. So get over the hurdle and think about unlocking the safe, getting your book out of it and sharing it with the world. And the only way to do that is through marketing and sales. Like I said, I am an introvert. People don't believe me because, I talk a lot, but I mean, really on the inside, I'm an introvert. I prefer just to be home by myself. I don't like big crowds. But the best thing I ever did for myself was getting over my fear of public speaking, learning to do sales and marketing. I also have help in my business. I don't do everything. I have some really great assistants that do things for me. So once you learn it yourself, then you could pay people. But really, you need to learn it yourself. Because if you don't learn it yourself first, you can also get, ripped off and taken advantage of in the world, so you really should know how everything operates. So I guess the question would be is, what is holding you back from, not being the biggest secret in your industry? And probably most of the time it's marketing, sales, speaking, those things that introverts don't want to do.
Michelle, that is an awesome question. Really dives into the essential things you have to do to have a book business, the essentials to making money, because you could write all day, but if no one's seeing it, you're not able to get readers and you're not able to support yourself with your books. So definitely a great insight for us to think about. Another thing that we can think about is getting our copy of the Backwards book launch, which will be in the show notes. And I know, Michelle, you have that book. I'm wondering if you have anything else that you want to share with us as well.
Well, one of the things, and I always teach my clients this, is listen, on Amazon, unfortunately, they don't give you the email address of all your readers. Yeah. So you really should have what they call lead magnet, which is just a free gift in the front of your book to get people on your email list, because that is your business. And the reason I say that is because years ago, my websites got hacked into, and literally all my websites went down in one night. But I felt like I still had my business because I had my email list on Aweber. I was like, I have my email list. I can email my list right now. I can put up a new website tomorrow. I can send people over there. You know what I mean? I had a business. Now, people think, well, I have a Facebook group. No, you don't own those. You don't own those followers in your Facebook group. You need an email list. So I do talk about that in the Backwards book launch. So that's another really important thing, is a lot of authors don't do it. oh, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to, I don't want to be pushy. Well, guess what? You need to be the purple cow, or you're going to just blend in the world of brown cows. And if you have something that ties into your book, give it to them. Give them a cheat sheet. On my bestsellingauthorprogram.com, I have a quick start kit, which has rapid writing secrets and the profit paths and the bestseller checklist. So you can go to my website, Bestselling Author Program, and you'll see the quick start kit on there. And it's 3 PDF documents, very easy to consume in 10 minutes, and you can read through those. There's some really great content on it. So give them something that benefits them.
Michelle, thank you for sharing with us that last insight, your resource, and everything you've shared with us throughout our time together. It was such a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success.
Oh, thank you, Mark. You're a great host.